Hello, happy Wax on Wednesdays. Today I thought I'd try a little bit something different for the holidays, but using the same tiles that I've been using pretty much all month. And I'm using the Pinata alcohol inks and some 91% alcohol and some brushes, a spray bottle, and some alcohol inks already dried in my palette. And those tiles from Home Depot or Lowe's, get them by the box, they're so much cheaper. And here I'm cleaning off my tile with the 91% alcohol just to make sure that there's no dust on it, and getting a few paper towels ready here. This is just a really fun project. You can use them for coasters. You can give them as little gifts to your guests for your holiday table. Here I'm adding some alcohol inks for my background, and this part is the really fun part. Just adding some color and then adding the 91% alcohol to the tile, and it makes these beautiful streaks of color. And you can keep layering these colors. It doesn't have to be one single layer, and every time you add that 91% alcohol, it'll streak that color in a beautiful way. And I'm just dabbing that, gets that sort of lined edge from that ink building up on the bottom of the tile, and I'm just blotting it up with the paper towel and adding just a tiny bit of alcohol before I begin to get that running effect started, and then continuing that with adding the alcohol rather right there, and it just leaves these beautiful streaks depending on what colors you add to begin with, but just these beautiful streaks that almost look like the northern lights. And here you can see that little line at the bottom there from all that built up ink, and just having that paper towel there to blot up any extra ink really gets rid of that sort of edge at the bottom there, and just setting those aside to dry. They don't take long at all. And the really fun part about these backgrounds is you can do them in layers. You don't have to stop with just that first layer. You can continue on with multiple layers of color, getting that exact color that you want, and then just continuing to add that streaked effect with the 91% alcohol in the spray bottle. And it's just really fun to play around with colors and different portions. If you don't like it, spray it with the alcohol and most of it will run off, and you can add more colors or change your colors up. And it's just a really fun to play with these backgrounds and do a bunch of them before you begin your snowman. And it only takes a minute or two for these to dry on their own, and I do let these dry on their own. I think the streaks are so pretty when they dry naturally rather than using the heat gun on these particular pieces. And I'm using just one of those watercolor brushes that you can fill the tube that's actually in the brush, and like a brush pen, and it's really good for mopping up that color. And I'm just dipping it in the 91% alcohol that I have there in the cup and using it to refine the lines and just clean the ink off to create that snow for the snowman. And this project is fun because it's all about taking away the color in the places that instead of painting on the snowman and painting on the snow, you're basically just removing the color. And that's kind of what makes it a really fun project, is painting or creating those negative spaces. And you can really use any brush to do this, to take away the ink with the 91% alcohol. You can also use a Q-tip. Here I'm using a Q-tip. It's a little bit faster. The brush is better for refining those really delicate lines. And you don't want to soak your brush too much. Notice that I'm wiping it off on the paper towel a lot because I don't want any bloom from that alcohol. I want it to be very refined. My lines that I'm creating now, I want it to be very refined like I'm painting. So every time I dip my brush or my Q-tip into that alcohol, I'm also wiping it off on the paper towel first, so I'm not getting too much alcohol on the brush or the Q-tip. And this will help in creating your more delicate lines with your snowman or whatever you're creating without having that alcohol run and bloom into the rest of your color. It's really fun to create these snowmen. It's just 3 circles, one big one and 2 consecutive smaller ones on top. Just removing that ink with the 91% alcohol and little bit of shadow with some more alcohol ink. And the fun part about this is if you don't like it, if you did it wrong, you can simply remove it with the alcohol ink, so there's never any mistakes in this project whatsoever. And here I'm going to take a little bit of a liner brush and create some little face with some more alcohol ink. I'm using black alcohol ink here, and I'm always wiping, and a little orange for his nose, and I'm always wiping the brush off, whether I'm dipping it in the alcohol or dipping it in to activate the alcohol inks. I'm always wiping it off blotting it on the paper towel first, so I make sure that I don't have just a big blob of alcohol ink, because it will bloom if you have a bunch of ink on your brush. And if that happens, you can just clean it right off with just some straight alcohol. Some 91% alcohol will clean up any mistakes, so there's no worries. And again, using just some plain alcohol to create his little fluffy ball there at the top of his hat. And if you'd like to see any of the supplies that I used this week, I list all of the supplies each week for the videos on the blog at sherryreplogle.com, and you can easily see all of the supplies used for each video. And to finish these little guys off, I do use a spray varnish, and then I apply a coat of art resin and let it dry overnight, and it has that beautiful glass-like finish. And the last little step in this painting is using a Sigma Uniball white pen, and it just adds that little details to finish him up, with adding some little snow on his twig hands and maybe on his hat, and also the snowflakes are added with this pen. And you can also do this with a liner brush and removing more of that ink, but I just love this Uniball pen, and I think the white is a little bit brighter this way. So I hope you really enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Happy Wax on Wednesdays.